Hey, Hugh here, welcome to the video. In this one, I want to break down how you can build out and productize your coaching program. So a couple of examples of people that have done this really well that you would have heard of is Alex Hormozy with Gym Launch, right? When he built that program, he built it out as a productized offer, a productized coaching program. And so by doing that, he was able to build it to the point where he was actually able to leave and sell the company, and it's still going strong today, right? That was a multi eight-figure company, I believe, and he sold it for a lot of money, stepped away from it. Same with Sam Ovens. He built consulting.com, and his signature program, Consulting Accelerator, which is a program I did several years ago, was really renowned in the industry. And he stepped away from it. Initially, he didn't sell it. He stepped away from it to build school.com. But it was so well regarded that one of his previous students reached out to actually acquire the IP from him and take over that business. And so Consulting Accelerator is a program that is very much productized that Sam Ovens built. And he had a stack to that as well. He had Uplevel and he also had Quantum Mastermind. So those were programs that were very much productized. And I want to give you a couple of examples of clients I've worked with who have also done this really well as well. So Luke Duran is a coach from the UK. He's a health coach. He has a program called the 1% Blueprint. So he works with high-level executives and corporates and helps them with their health and transforming their health. And he has productized this into his blueprint. And same with my client Tiari Tawara from New Zealand, who has a program called Self Mastery. And Self Mastery is really, it's a program for entrepreneurs to master their mind. It's a mindset and business coaching program. And the outcome is business orientated. People get ridiculous results in terms of growth in their business. But his focus is actually the mindset work that he does with people. So it's very transformative. And he has built his business around this program and productized the program. So if we zoom in a little bit, so we get clear on kind of how this actually works, like how do you build this into a set program? Now, chances are you might have some clients right now, you're coaching people one-to-one, but what happens a lot of the time, especially in the earlier stages, is we have different clients with different problems. They come to us for wanting different things really. And because you're coaching somebody one-to-one, you're able to customize things for each person. And so when it comes to marketing, it's really hard because you're not really sure who to speak to, and maybe you just put content out that's really broad and speaking to loads of different people. And then when it comes to trying to build a program, you're like, well, how do I build something that's productized when I'm speaking to people at different levels, different stages, sometimes completely different demographics with different problems? Like, how do I consolidate that into one thing? And sometimes you have to make a hard decision and actually just draw a line in the sand so that you can get clear on, who that program is for. And one of the most powerful things that I ever did was learning to get really clear on I use the word niche, but I'm not a massive fan of that word, but really I got clear on my journey. So back in 2015, I started my first online coaching business, which was a health coaching business. And that program I initially launched, it was a productized program, but it was called the Weight Loss Academy. And the thing is, I just built this because I thought it was what the market needed. I marketed to middle-aged men and women, and it was a weight loss program. And so I did sign clients for that. They lost weight. It was good. But I couldn't relate to my clients. I didn't really enjoy coaching them either. And the truth is, when I launched that program, I was 22 years old, 23 years old. And I'd never been really overweight myself, right? My issue was actually the opposite. I was really skinny and struggled to build muscle. I was struggling with anxiety and low energy and low confidence and things like that. And it took me about a year and a half for it to really, really click. But what I did is I started telling my story and I started sharing my insights and I started to marketing to people who were like me. And they weren't necessarily the same age. I did work with people who were kind of 10, 15 years older than me, but they were guys who just were really struggling with their self-confidence. I'd been through this personal transformation where, I struggled with women, I struggled with confidence, that affected my business, that affected my social life. And I was just I just really didn't feel good in myself. And so I went on a journey, I built a load of physical strength. I packed on 20 kilograms of muscle over a few years. But internally, I did the work on myself. I learned meditation, I learned these, studied psychology, and I understood how to start to look at myself differently. And so I went through this transformation myself. And so I started helping people with that. And my marketing was talking to those people. And really, those people were like me a few years prior to that. And that's one of the best ways to build a program. It's thinking about what's the journey that you have been like, what's the transformation you have been on. And a really good way to kind of illustrate this and understand it is The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. So he wrote a book called The Hero's Journey, and it was based on the work of Carl Jung, who's a psychologist who, he kind of came up with a school of thought, which is now known as Jungian psychology. So that's something I've studied in depth over the years, understanding shadow work and things like that. But really, that doesn't really matter too much with this. The whole premise is this storytelling element, which is like you have this person, right? And you can think about this. This is used a lot in storytelling and films and things as well. But you have this person, this character, who is called to adventure. So this is where, for example, in Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, at the start, he wants to go off and he wants to leave Tatooine, right? He wants to leave his home planet. He's not really, he's not loving life there. He wants to leave, but there's not really a strong purpose for him to leave. And then his aunt and uncle are killed by the Empire. And so he's called to adventure. He's like, hey, I need to step up. And then he meets a mentor, which is Obi-Wan Kenobi. He calls him up to become a Jedi. And so he goes on this journey. Like physically, he leaves the planet and they go on this journey. But also internally, he starts to change and develop skills, and he starts to change his beliefs around life and the universe, and he starts to understand this concept called the Force, right? And so his identity changes. His old identity dies, and he is reborn as a Jedi, right? And in that trilogy of films, he, in the last film, he's like properly a Jedi, and he kind of has this big breakthrough. He comes through and eventually, saves, kills the Emperor, saves the galaxy, etc., etc. And so this story can be applied to your life. And if you think about, chances are if you're a coach, you have been through a transformation yourself. You probably had some challenges. You felt the need to change. You met a mentor, a guide. Maybe you did some certifications. There were things that you learned, and you had an external person helping you with that, right? And so then you went on this adventure. And it wasn't linear. You probably had a lot of challenges. Maybe it took a lot of time as well. Like this journey isn't always like a 6-month journey. This can be years and years and years. And you had trials and failure. There were things that came up that maybe triggered you, that challenged you, some life circumstances. I know recently we had COVID. That was huge. That destroyed my old business, and I had to restart again. And so even though I've been through this journey multiple times, right? And maybe you have too. And so along the way, you learn new skills, like externally, you learn new skills that help you transform. And then you change your identity, you become a new person, right? Whether you're aware of it or not, like if you have created a substantial change in your life and things have shifted, you have become, and you probably see yourself in a different way than you did maybe a few years ago before doing that. You've had a breakthrough, things externally start to change, so your outcomes start to change and things around you start to change. And then you kind of go back to the real world and you become the mentor to guide other people, all right? So I've been through this journey multiple times. As I said, I was a health coach. I went through a health journey myself, invested in health it was more like personal training, qualifications, university. I learned a lot of stuff. I coached other people. I invested into other mentors, other coaching, developed understanding around psychology, NLP, shadow work, all this stuff. And then started coaching around that. And then over time, I started learning business. I worked for my business mentor for over a year, coached hundreds of clients, ran ads for hundreds of clients, partnered with a few different agencies, launched my own agency, started coaching and consulting with people around their business. So over time, I've been through this journey from different perspectives, different kind of transformations that have happened in my life. And every time I've had to go through this, I've had this death and rebirth of letting go of an old identity, stepping into a new identity. And so that is exactly what you would have been through if you're watching this video. If you're a coach and you've been through a transformation, that's why you became a coach, right? Because you've probably achieved something in your life and overcome something, then that equips you to then go and help other people. If you're someone that just does loads of qualifications and you've never applied anything and you're just the same person you were 10 years ago, you're probably not equipped to help people. You probably need to go through that journey yourself. But I imagine if you're watching this video, that doesn't apply to you. I imagine you have been through some stuff, you've overcome challenges, you've achieved things in your life, and that's why you're watching this video. So once we're clear on the journey that we're taking somebody on, we want to validate our offer. And so what's really important here is, and I've had this conversation a lot lately with people where they want to go out and they want to launch an offer, but they want to validate it first and they don't kind of really know how to do that. And then they kind of get stuck in this perpetual cycle of like trying to figure stuff out, but then never really launching stuff. And so one of the best things that you can do is write out your offer in a document, reach out to people, like your ideal prospects for that offer, right? So they fit that demographic of the person you're trying to help, the person that maybe was you a few years ago, and ask them for feedback, right? So maybe you don't give the pricing, but you just give a breakdown of kind of what you want to cover on a program and ask people for their feedback and have conversations with people, because conversations are key. Like guessing an offer doesn't work. Like you might think that you know what people want, but what happens is when we go on, reverse back, when we go on that hero's journey, right? I fell into this trap. A lot of people I've worked with over the years fall into this trap. It's like you go on this journey and then you kind of forget what you wanted and the problems that you had at the start. And then you start talking to people from this like deeper level of awareness. And you're like, okay, well, actually they don't need any of that stuff. They need this stuff that I figured out later down the journey, right? But in reality, like most people need to go through maybe some surface level changes before they go into that deeper transformation. And so that's really important to understand. And the way we communicate that is by just having conversations and seeing what people are saying, right? Like literally in Messenger. And if you have like sales calls or, you just have like connection calls with people and have a chat with them, like write down the words or record the video and write down the words, what people are saying to you, because what you think people want and what they actually want are often two different things. And also times change, right? Like if you went through this journey a few years ago and things have changed in the last few years, right? The world has shifted a lot. There's been a lot of big changes over the last few years. We're in a different kind of global economy right now. We've just been through, a few years ago, went through COVID and pandemic and lockdown. So people's mindsets have shifted, right? So don't just try and guess what people want. Use, for want of a better word, use market research to find out and build your offer around it, because you can write it out and then as people kind of answer questions, give you feedback, you can keep tweaking it and then you can launch your offer. That's the best way to write an offer so it's as effective as possible. And then to really validate it is to make sales, right? So get people buying and saying yes and actually giving you their money, and then you validated your offer. And really from there, like you don't need to change your offer loads. Like once it's selling, this is the thing as well, like don't change your offer. If it's working, don't change it, right? I've fallen into this trap. A lot of people fall into this trap. It's like you sell something for a little bit and then you get maybe like your marketing stops working, or maybe like there's some issues with coaching, and then so you start trying to change the offer. But most of the time, if your offer's converting, like don't fix what's not broken, right? So if you're not generating leads, you want to fix your lead generation. If you're not making sales, you want to fix your sales process or your offer. If you're not getting results, you need to fix your client fulfillment, right? So focus on the thing that he's fixing. If your offer's validated and it's working, stick with it and then work around, the things that actually need fixing around that. So next, what I want to talk about is compounding revenue. So once you have a program set out, you've got people coming in. I always say start one-to-one with this because it's a lot easier to start with a program one-to-one and build it out that way versus like trying to have a few one-to-one clients, then build this group thing and then like suddenly try and launch this group thing when you've got like not a lot of leads or not a lot of sales calls getting booked. Like you want to build out your marketing and your program around, one-to-one and take people through it one-to-one. Like you've got calls, but then you're building resources to help people, whether that's video lessons, written resources, a group, like that's really valuable. I will scroll down a little bit and come back to this. So it kind of ties into this, like facilitating transformations at scale, and the key to consistent growth. Understanding the key to consistent growth is building leverage in your business. First with marketing and sales assets, so you have enough potential clients, then with a program that's built to scale. So this is what I was kind of talking about. It's like you start with one-to-one and you probably charge a bit more because it's one-to-one, you're selling time for money. Then here's the thing, rather than like jumping into just launching this new group, you go and add a group to your one-to-one. So let's say you have 10 one-to-one clients or 8, 5, whatever, like you've got a group of people and you're just coaching them individually, offer them an additional group. So it's not like, hey, you're paying me the same, I'm just going to push you into this group. It's an additional thing to give them support and community around what you're doing, right? So they're still paying the same, but they're now getting additional support. Then what you can do is for people coming into the program now, you barely need to change your offer. It's just rather than doing, say, a weekly one-to-one and they get group, maybe you do a bi-weekly one-to-one or a monthly one-to-one. So you're reducing your one-to-one coaching time, and there's more emphasis on the group and kind of self-management from them. And then if you want to, you can scale further by having a group and one-to-one, right? So you might charge a bit less for the group and a lot more for one-to-one. And you might even get one-to-one clients from your group, right? Like some people might come in, they join the group for a bit and they feel like they need some more support and they work with you one-to-one. And so like you don't necessarily have to get to this point where you do this, right? You can do this. And one of the programs I've run a few programs like that, but the big one when I was working for my mentor, this is how we ran it basically. They would get a one-to-one call once a month with me. I was the head coach. They'd get a group call every week with me, and then they would get a group call once a month with the guy running the program, right? So, and I've been in a few programs like that. It works really well. Like I do think the one-to-one support is really good, but in some cases you can just have a group and that works well if people just want the group, but then give them an option of one-to-one if they want to pay more and get one-to-one access. And if that's what you want to sell, right? Like really it's kind of down to you because you don't have to do one-to-one later down the line if you don't want to. But I do think it's good to have that. And I personally like being in the trenches with people. Like my highest level offer is a done for you one-to-one service. So it's a combination of like coaching and there's done for you elements with copywriting, content creation and ads management. And then I have a one-to-one coaching offer that I run as well. So there's kind of different levels to that. But depending on what kind of niche you're in and what you do for clients, like you might not have like a done for you service. It might just be coaching one-to-one with people. So going back to the compounding revenue. So like, as I said, like cash flow is king and we want to keep cash and reinvest it into marketing. This is a huge issue that I see a lot of people have is they get some quick wins and let's say they get a few sales on and then instead of reinvesting that money back into their business, they just spend it all, right? They treat it as their own income and they just spend it all versus looking at it as a business, right? So this in itself is a bit of a mindset shift. It's like starting to operate as an actual business owner. So let's say you made a few sales. Let's say you made $5,000, right? I'm not saying that you have to reinvest all of it back into your business, but maybe you take 1,000, you spend that in ads, right? And then from there you make 5,000, 5x return. That's pretty good going at the start. It's definitely doable. Then you take 3,000 of that, you pay yourself that, and then the next month you spend 2,000. And then you've got things more dialed in here. So now you get a better return and you make 10,000. Well, actually technically it's the same return as a 5x, right? Things start compounding and building because when you're running ads, you're also building your personal brand. If you're doing it right, if you watch the last video, I talk about this, the hybrid funnel on my channel, and really like you're compounding as well. So you're going to get people come through a bit faster, but you're also going to get a lot more people that just need more depth with you and they'll follow you for longer and then work with you later down the line. And so that's really important to understand. So yeah, you spend 2,000, you make 10,000, right? Then the next month, right? You've paid yourself 6,000. Now you spend 4,000, and because things are compounding and starting to build up, maybe you have some people on payment plans and stuff. Now you make 30,000, right? And then the next month you spend 6,000. You're pocketing a lot more now because from here you're pocketing 24 grand, and you make 50K, right? And this is this isn't exactly the same. It's a very similar roadmap that I took a client through a few years ago when we grew his business from zero. And we actually got it up to 70K, spending 8K. So essentially like a little, an extra step on this ladder. Just scaled it up, and this might not be month to month, right? This might be a 2-month period. This might be a 3-month period. This might be a 6-month period, right? You just build it up slowly and compounds. But as long as you're reinvesting back into your business, your marketing, like that's super important. Otherwise, you make a few sales, you get a few people in, things dry up, and then your program just fizzles out. And it's shit because now it's really hard to get people in, and you're back to square one with one-to-one because you just don't have enough momentum to keep running a group. And so that's why you want to keep reinvesting and reinvesting more as you make more, right? It's not that you have to spend ridiculous amounts. Like, you don't need to be spending tens of thousands of dollars to make 50K a month, right? For most people I speak to right now, it's like their goal is 20 or 30K a month. You could easily spend 4 or 5K to make 30K a month, which is a very good return. That's 25K profit. So if you get this set up properly, you've got a productized program, you've got your offer right, you got your lead generation right, which again, like I covered in the last video, I'll link it below, then things start working out and compounding. That's how you compound revenue. And then the next and final stage really is becoming an industry leader. So you're developing your brand around your program, who you help and what you do, right? So again, these guys have shifted now. Like, obviously Alex is promoting acquisition.com. Sam is promoting school.com. And more recently, Alex is also promoting school.com since they partnered. But obviously he's got acquisition as well. And then these guys have their programs. And, you know, all of my clients have like a set program they're promoting. Their marketing is reverse engineered from their program. So if you think about your program, you've got your offer, your sales process you take somebody through, you're having conversations with people, they're watching videos on Instagram or YouTube, you got a lead magnet, like everything is in alignment with this program, right? This productized program. If you are just talking about loads of random stuff, you're going to confuse people. They're not really going to know what you do, who you help, what you're an expert in. So you want to be sharing your story, you want to be sharing your journey that ties into your program and your offer. And so that is how you start becoming an industry leader. And you don't have to have millions of followers, right? Like, Alex Hormozi didn't really become internet famous until after he sold Gym Launch, right? Like, I knew of Alex because when I was working for that company in 2017, we worked with online fitness professionals. He worked with gyms, like in person, and so we'd refer people to each other. So I knew who Alex was back then, but he wasn't a big name. Like, he didn't have like big social media presence. It was a very, very kind of small audience because he wasn't really big into branding back then. But now he's developed his brand a lot further. But people did know. I think more people back then would have known the name Gym Launch than they would have known Alex, right? Same with consulting.com. Like, consulting.com was huge and Consulting Accelerator was huge. So when you start to productize your program, it gives you a lot of leverage because then you can also hire experts. You can hire other people. Like Alex, you know, started one-to-one. Same with Sam. They started one-to-one with people, built their process, built their program, and then they were able to hire a team to fulfill on those programs. So they weren't in the weeds doing everything. Some of these guys as well, right? It's leveraged, it's group, it's able to create processes. If you want to get team members on to then do the one-to-one, you can do, or even do the group calls. And that's how you start to become an industry leader. So it's not about becoming famous, it's about becoming relevant to a specific demographic, a specific audience. So hopefully you found this video useful. If you have, hit like, hit subscribe, and if you have any questions around this, comment below. And if you haven't watched the video I did last week where I break down more of the lead generation stuff, I'm talking about the hybrid funnel and the model to get to 20K a month, I'll link that below because I think that'll be a super useful video for you to watch next. Or I'll link it after this video. But I hope you found this video useful, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.